Hello options traders, Steve Ganz here, and I want to share a conceptual trade with you. Again, all these trades are designed to be paper trades, things that we can learn from. But what I'm going to reference this particular time is there's going to be a blog post here shortly from Brian Friedman. So Brian is also a contributor to OptionStrat, and he writes some great articles. Make sure you check them out here in the blog. And I'll make sure I put a link down below as well to this article as soon as it gets posted. But his article this month is going to be about Nvidia and how going into earnings, Nvidia often has a climb in the volatility. In other words, the volatility of the options or the volatility of Nvidia going into options tends to escalate. And that's because, of course, nobody knows which direction Nvidia is going to go and how that's going to happen. Now, many times after an earnings announcement, which Nvidia's earnings announcement happens to be on August 28th, many times after that announcement, volatility can drop out because what was unknown now becomes known. However, if Nvidia has a large move one direction or the other in that earnings announcement, that can cause huge directional flow, if you will, or price drop, price increase, and along with that can even come a higher level of volatility. But right now I'm just going to work on the premise that volatility historically increases as you get closer and closer to earnings with Nvidia, and in fact with most companies. But we're going to look specifically at Nvidia in this example. So if that's my premise, if my premise is that volatility and therefore the price of options is likely to increase as we get closer and closer to that earnings date, how might I play that? Keep in mind, I don't know which direction the market's apt to go here or Nvidia's apt to go. So I'm going to choose directional. So I don't know which direction, up or down, but I don't need to know with this particular trade. I also want to make certain that I am selecting, in this case, an expiration that is after Nvidia's earnings announcement. Their earnings announcement is on August 28th, so I am selecting August 30th. Now, they're looking at an expected move of 26.31, but let me open this in Builder, see what this looks like. This is a defined risk trade. Now, it's a big defined risk of $2,000 because of the way Nvidia can often move. However, let's just take a quick look at this and understand that what I'm playing for here is an increase in volatility. Right now, the implied volatility is at 59%. If I look at the information that Brian's going to be publishing, it will often get much, much higher than that. And so let's look, if I get into this trade and volatility starts to grind up as we get into earnings, let's take a look at that. Look what happens there. As we get closer and closer to earnings and volatility, if it goes up like it historically does, as we get near those earnings, it's possible that I could go ahead and close out this trade before the earnings announcement even happens. So now I may, as I get close to earnings, if I think a big move might occur one way or the other, maybe I decide to even hang on to that trade. Again, that could be a potentially risky move. If we do in fact just simply have a volatility rise prior to earnings, then I may just go ahead and take a profit on this if I were in a trade like this. Now, we have to also understand that as volatility is rising, theta decay is going to be working against us. So as we go along here, theta is going to be ticking away to take money out of this trade at the same time that volatility is potentially putting profitability back into that trade. But again, what will often happen is going into earnings, the volatility increase will often outpace the theta decay. So that's the premise here. That's what I'm kind of experimenting with and looking at in this particular trade based on Brian's analysis of a fairly consistent climb in the volatility as we get into Nvidia earnings and potentially after earnings. But again, this trade is designed just to take a look at how that might move prior to earnings. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this trade, and we're calling it a straddle, and I'm going to put earnings IV increase in my description here. This is going to be a start to finish trade. I will save this trade. I will share the link to the trade in the description down below as well. And then we'll kind of follow up with this and see how it plays out, over the next coming weeks as we start working into those August earnings for Nvidia. So that's it for now, everyone. Take care. Make sure you check out Brian's article.